The Center for Behavioral Health and Justice started these meetings about 3 years ago or so, almost 3 years ago, because we saw a need for professionals in AOT to come together, collaborate, learn from each other, and ideally brainstorm and navigate different barriers, challenges, and successes that we all have doing this work. So that's what this space is for. And if you received our email reminder, you know that today we have members of the NGRI Committee here to talk about updates and policy that will be effective later this year. And we really appreciate everyone that came today and in the spirit of understanding and educating around these policy changes with the opportunity to ask questions and inform our practice better. So this is great. And thank you all so much for attending. A quick note before we get started. Any opinions and views shared today by the presenters or audience members are those of the individual professionals and not necessarily reflect those of the CBHJ or Wayne State University. And since there are so many new people here today, I'll do what I always do actually and plug our Q&A sessions. So we specifically set up AOT question and answer sessions twice a month where we have Dr. Scott Smith available to answer any AOT related questions. It is a drop-in, so you can come in anytime within that hour span. And just if you have case related questions, process related questions, and if you need support, really anything, you can come to that drop-in and we'll go ahead and give that information. Oh yeah, and it's also a really great resource for families, for natural supports and families of AOT loved ones if they have a lot of questions as well and how to navigate and their questions that you may not be able to answer. So we're going to go ahead, if we haven't already, and drop that information in the chat. Maybe we can wait till folks are done introducing themselves. But next month, it's going to be Monday, May 11th from 11 to 12, and then Wednesday, May 20th from 2 to 3 p.m. Yeah, so it's always going to be the second Monday of the month from 11 to 12, and then the third Wednesday uh, of the month from 2 to 3. So those are those AOT Q&A sessions. If you have any questions about the Q&A sessions, be sure to let us know. You can drop it in the chat if you'd like. And if there are questions that don't get addressed here today, I have a feeling that we might go right up to time with questions. If if you have questions that don't get addressed here today, those Q&A sessions are a great space for that, as well as just you can follow up with us after as well. So next, just a couple more housekeeping items before we get started. Next, I know a lot of you are here today because you either received a Zoom link uh, or you saw a flyer and the Zoom link was on there. So if you'd like to sign up to attend this event monthly, or you'd like to sign up for our quarterly newsletter, or just kind of see how else you can get involved in AOT and the different resources we offer, please click on the link that we will share in the chat. We'll go ahead and share it consistently, maybe throughout the event here so that new people trickling in can have that information. But yeah, so it's just a form kind of just, stating what you might like to be involved in, whether it's just attending this event monthly or, newsletter or what have you. So thank you. And finally, the last announcement that I have, I wanted to let you know that after almost 3 years of facilitating this event, this will be my last community of practice as your facilitator, as I am leaving the CBHJ to work in holistic defense at the Allegan County Public Defender's Office. So I just wanted to say thank you to all who, even if it's your first time or if you come every month, I just want to say it's been such a pleasure and an honor to facilitate this space, and I've learned so much from all of you, and I admire you so deeply. And for the folks who have a continued commitment in delivering the best to the people you serve, it's so incredible to see and to witness and to be a part of. So thank you so much. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Kelli Schaefer and Dr. Kulp for them to introduce themselves and start their presentations. So take it away.
Hi, I can get started. My name is Kelli Schaefer, and I work at the Center for Forensic Psychiatry. I'm currently the social work director, and I am also the NGRI liaison. So I recognize many of your names there in the chat, and I've worked with you somewhere along the way. So it's nice to see you here. And I'll turn it over to Dr. Kulp.
Hi, good morning. I'm Kim Kulp. I am the Director of Psychiatry at the Center for Forensic Psychiatry, as well as the Chair of the NGRI Committee. And I'm happy to be here today to discuss our new changes with you. So I'll throw it back to you, Kelli, to start.
All right. We can get started. Just we do have a presentation here. I'm hoping we can be done in 25 to 30 minutes, hopefully. And because I imagine there's going to be a lot of questions. And what we would also really like is a lot of just feedback and suggestions from you guys in the community as we kind of go forward with some of these transitions that we have in the upcoming year. So, all right. So just since we probably have a variety of folks out there with different levels of understanding or experience working with NGRI individuals, we treat NGRI patients at all continuums of the treatment spectrum here. They start their journey once they're adjudicated not guilty by reason of insanity at the forensic center. Many of them may transition to the regional state hospitals, so Caro Psychiatric Hospital, Kalamazoo Psychiatric, or Walter Reuther. And then, of course, we have community-based placements where we have a large portion of our consumers. All right, and just a quick little graph here. As you can see, and this is something that I think we're really proud of. When I started working on with the NGRI committee, I think back in 2014 or so, for many years, we probably had more NGRI patients in the state hospital system than in the community. And I think somewhere along the last 10 years or so, we've thankfully transitioned where the majority of our NGRI patients are in community settings, so in the least restrictive setting available. So we really have about 60-ish to maybe 65% of our folks are in community placements right now.
Yeah, so when we look at our NGRI patients in the hospital setting, we wanted, to give some idea of what we do at the CFP, the Center for Forensic Psychiatry, immediately after their NGRI adjudication by the courts. And so our staff receive specialized forensic training and work hard to gather the necessary information to treat, evaluate, and treat the patients. So we have a multidisciplinary team that is a treatment team that provides evaluation and assessments, which can include psychiatric evaluation, social work evaluation, as well as psychological testing if necessary. We certainly work to obtain collateral information, looking at the reports that have been put out prior to the adjudication, as well as collateral hospital information, prior treatment information from CMHs or other sources. We look at family collateral as well. We're looking to identify risk and protective factors for that individual. We're certainly looking at diagnostic clarity. We spend a great deal of time both observationally, but again, reviewing collateral records and evaluating the patient to obtain diagnostic clarity. We're looking at, along the same lines, making sure that we have the optimal medication regimen, meaning that we want to alleviate as many symptoms as possible, as well as balancing with concerns about side effects, and making sure that we have someone on a appropriate medication regimen for themselves. And often we get very complex individuals with medical issues as well. So we're looking at all of those things together, and also thinking about cost, and when they get in the community, is this going to be a regimen that can be continued? As well as looking at, obviously, individualized treatment and adjusting as necessary as goals are met, or if there are challenges along the way. And again, taking into consideration that patient's individual symptoms, their history, and any risk factors. just a little NGRI committee background, and actually just NGRI in general, to kind of show you how we've gotten where we are. In 1966, the Department of Mental Health Task Force recommended that a Center for Forensic Psychiatry be established. So that was the first time that we actually had a formal Center for Forensic Psychiatry. In 1974, we have the Mental Health Code as we currently know it established. And in that MCL, we have the Center for Forensic Psychiatry specifically named, as well as the NGRI Committee being established at that point. And you can see on the slide, it gives the specific codes for where we were in the law where we were established. It also details the processes for individuals adjudicated NGRI, and that they are to come directly to the center to be evaluated, as well as that they can be on leave, which is in the code, for a period up to 5 years. Then we moved to 1996, where we had the Department of Community Health, Michigan Department of Community Health, issued a directive, the director, that all recommendations to the court, either for release or transfer, must be reviewed by the committee, the NGRI committee, and that written recommendations from the committee would be sent to the court, so that they would be aware of the NGRI committee's opinions regarding an individual as to whether they needed to continue with court-ordered treatment. And as well, it set up the whole DD process, the departmental designee, as we call them, so that individuals, in this case, in 1996, it was individuals with murder adjudications would be reviewed by a special designee after the NGRI committee review. And again, that's what we now refer to as our DD, which is Dr. Pinals currently. In 2021, we, as many of you probably know, there was a class action lawsuit that we call Pellichet. The Pellichet lawsuit included individuals as well as the Disability Rights Michigan, who sued the NGRI committee and the Department of Health and Human Services, as well as Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, as well as others, regarding some of the NGRI practices. The result of that was an agreement that the ALS contracts at the time that we were utilizing would be dissolved, and that individuals would no longer be on hospitalization orders, but would start, when they go into the community, would be on AOT orders instead, and would have linked IPOS risk mitigation strategies utilized instead of the ALS contracts. Which brings us up to today. We do want to remind people in terms of the NGRI committee's role, that in the Michigan Mental Health Code in Chapter 10, it is noted that patients cannot be placed on leave or discharged without the evaluation recommendation of the NGRI committee. And that patients with murder or sexual offenses will also have an additional review by the department director / designee, which is again the DD, and currently Dr. Pinals. Also noting that NGRI patients may be continued to be monitored by the NGRI committee in the community for up to 5 years, and we specify 5 continuous years, if they are on court-ordered treatment, meaning AOT or combined AOT orders or hospital orders. So who is the NGRI committee? Well, you've met 2 of us, Kelli and I, and Kelli and me, and there are 6 other people. It is an interdisciplinary group. It's all clinically based. We are all specialized forensically trained. So there are currently 4 psychiatrists. There are 2 clinical social workers and 2 psychologists on the committee. We are all appointed by the CFP hospital director. We meet formally, we meet weekly on Wednesday afternoons to review consultations, requests that have been submitted formally throughout the week. However, we also do a great deal of communication in between those meetings every week. We do monitor all NGRI patients throughout the state, as Kelli said, inpatient and outpatient. And we review all recommendations and requests for the LOAs, discharges, changes in level of care, transfer, and other things as well. So things that we look at when we are getting requests for consultation or for approval for move into the community and moves throughout the community, other things. We're looking at many things. We look at every person individually, but some of the things that are considered that we wanted to kind of make sure you all were aware. We look at the individual's NGRI offense or offenses. Some people have had more than one NGRI offense. We look at their the entirety of their legal history. We look at their history of violence. We look at any history of violence or current violence and elopement risks. We are looking at mental health treatment history, certainly, and current mental health treatment as well. Substance use and current treatment, as well as current treatment patterns. Are they adherent to going to all their, whether it's groups, individual therapy, do they have a good relationship with the team? And then certainly their biopsychosocial history as well.
I think I can kind of jump in here a little bit as we start to kind of see some of the observations and things that we noticed post Palaszczuk. So as Dr. Kulp mentioned, in 2021 was when we had to make a number of changes following the lawsuit. The first of those were that all individuals who had previously been released on contracts were now being released on these risk mitigation strategies and via an assisted outpatient treatment order. I think what we first started to notice as a committee, and I guess it was that, there were a number of challenges across the state in how those AOTs were, implemented and maybe administered across counties. I think different courts maybe had different understandings or different education about what was going on at the NGRI committee and this process. And I think that was kind of one initial challenge that we faced. Certain judges may not have wanted to, place individuals on AOTs or were unaware of the changes that had come from the NGRI committee, following the lawsuit that we were kind of had to implement. I think that there was also a lot of confusion and probably poor education and rollout on the part of the state as we kind of were forced to make some of these changes because, we started to see a number of NGRI consumers who were being released from court-ordered treatment. I mean, significant increases probably in those first 2 years where teams maybe were unaware of the need to renew for an AOT and or there was a misunderstanding that maybe they were only supposed to be in the community under NGRI oversight for 1 year. And there were drastic numbers of NGRI individuals being released without our review. And unfortunately, what we then started to see kind of as a result was seeing some of these same folks kind of pop up with new charges, new forensic avails in jails, getting calls from families regarding the concerns with some of the consumers. And then sometimes, unfortunately, even a few more kind of tragic circumstances that had occurred. I think another kind of big thing post-Palaszczuk that we noted was that really that piece of collaboration that we really, I think, had when we had ALS contracts, where CMHs and state hospital teams and the patient were all really working collaboratively before a patient was released to the community to develop that contract and that whole piece. It was kind of being lost when we transitioned to these risk mitigation strategies and that whole process, which then I think in turn also led to some additional burdens being placed on CMHs. I think it was a little bit, a lot may have been thrown on CMHs, which led probably to a lot of frustration, I know, from some calls from folks out there. And I think, I guess just not just more burden being placed on CMH, but also like it sometimes became more challenging when an NGRI consumer was being was involved in a crisis in the community. If they were deteriorating or something was happening, there seemed to be a lot of steps involved that kind of led before they were being hospitalized or maybe brought back to a state hospital, and it became a little more cumbersome than it had seemed in the past. So I think that timeliness of interventions, there were times when it decreased sometimes.
So we're going to kind of go over what's changing. What are we doing now to try to make things better for everyone, the CMHs, for the NGRI committee, obviously, and for the patients, and for the community actually as well. So we are going to be eliminating the use of AOT orders for the NGRI patients in the community. We are going to go to utilization of the hospital orders for patients, even in the community. And at the same time, if they are going to be in the community, they will be on authorized leave status. So they will be on a hospital order, but on authorized leave status from the hospital in the community. We are expecting to be able to expedite readmissions to state hospitals when the risk escalates. People will already be on a hospital order. It should make the process more smooth to get them back into a state hospital as necessary. We're going to improve NGRI committee involvement and working to collaborate with community providers, again, to minimize risk. We're going to be more proactive in attempting to really reach out to NGRI or to the CMHs when we are aware of difficulties, whether it's through Zoom meetings, which we've done a lot more of, consultations with the team, sometimes with the patient or without the patient involved directly, just more communication in different ways. We're doing that. We are working on having 2 new positions that will allow us to be more proactive. I think when I was talking about the NGRI committee in general, I didn't mention that that the NGRI committee are all clinical professionals who have a job, and then on top of it, they're doing the NGRI committee. It's not part of their job. They're doing it in addition as kind of in a voluntary way. So we really have had, we've really pushed to get more resources available to the NGRI committee so that we can have more time devoted to doing some of these things, like reaching out proactively, working with teams as much as we can to answer questions, and to help with any problems that you all might be having. We want to, and in that same way, as I said, we're trying to collaborate more to minimize the risks of patients in the community for decompensation, and if they are decompensating, to work quickly to see what's needed to safely stabilize them. We also are at the same time mindful that we will continue to ensure due process rights for a patient and the teams if they disagree with the committee decision, and that is, I think we'll talk about that in a little bit, but there is a process in place for that, as there always has been, and there will continue to be. We are rolling out the ALS contracts, again, along with those hospital orders when someone moves into the community. These will be individualized to meet the patient's needs, as well as the risk factors, and they will continue to be linked to the IPOS. So they are like the risk mitigation strategies that are currently used, but more, I see it as more formalized, more collaborative, and everyone will be clearly, it'll be more kind of proscribed who is doing what, and everyone will be in agreement, and there will be signatures, so that everyone is aware of this document and what is inside, and what is part of the document is what is needed from every party that's signing the document. Other things we're doing, we are implementing more violence risk assessments in the form of, for the most part, HCR 20 version 3s. We have started, we have a half-time psychiatrist, forensic psychiatrist, who is currently performing these as the NGRI committee identifies patients that we think are most needy of getting these violence risk assessments. We are also working to get multiple people trained at the forensic center, psychologists, social workers, psychiatrists, who then can also perform these violence risk assessments on a routine basis, so that when we identify patients that we think would be appropriate and need a violence risk assessment, that we can get that. We'd like to, at some point, roll it out in a more, even a larger manner, so that every NGRI, anybody educated NGRI would get a violence risk assessment. We're not there yet. We just don't have the resources, but we're hoping at one point, someday we'll be able to do that. At this point, it's the NGRI committee is identifying who they think would need it, and that usually would include those patients that would be seen by the departmental designee for murder, CSC, as well as repeat NGRI, people with more than one NGRI, or patients who have, for whatever reason, not done well in the community and have had either one or multiple returns to the hospital. So those are the things we're looking at now, and then any other patients that we think specifically the NGRI committee thinks might need a violence or risk assessment. We are also are really planning to do trainings for the courts, meaning the judges and prosecutors, hospitals, the state hospitals, and any community providers. We are working to get much more training in place than was available for Palaszczuk. Yeah, we're really excited about that too. And again, I think it's about resources, and we really, we're really pushing, the NGRI committee really pushed to get the resources needed, because it's really important for everyone to be on the same page with any changes, and just ongoing. We do plan to do much more ongoing education. We're going to do increased outreach, as I said, trying to be more proactive in terms of helping out the community providers as much as possible. And then we're going to do more quality assurance monitoring and data collection. And part of our hires is we are going to be hiring a data analyst specifically for the NGRI committee to really help us collect some of this data and really analyze it, so we know, kind of reinforce what's working and what's not, and what should we do, how should we pivot, where should we put our resources to really help. So that's coming soon as well. So what's going to remain the same? We are still going through with almost all of our other NGRI operations as well that won't be changing. Still the same committee, still meeting once a week. For community providers, we're still going to have those 30-day and 90-day reports that need to be sent to the committee and the regional hospital. We are going to, we still need the patients to be on a court order in order to be followed, monitored by the NGRI committee. The change would just be the type of court order. The discharges, move requests, changes to the ALS or risk mitigation strategies, overnight LOAs, permission to leave the state, those are all going to still require NGRI committee approval, just as they do now. We still will need to be notified about any changes in mental status, deterioration of a patient, any ULOAs, any treatment non-adherence, any kind of problems that that the community providers are seeing that could interfere with any kind of safety in the community or the patient's stability, or any progress in treatment, any barriers to treatment. And certainly then also we would want to be notified about any medication or diagnosis changes. We still are, the NGRI committee will still provide consultation as needed to assist in any kind of coordination of care of an individual. And again, I think we'll be able to be even more involved in that as needed. Again, the individuals, that the period of monitoring isn't changing. It's still that period of up to 5 years, and it's 5 continuous years once released in the community. And just to kind of be specific of what I mean by 5 continuous years, if someone is in the community and they're up in the community for 2 years, but then require state hospitalization, there is the possibility that they would, when they go back in the community, that the 5 years would restart. They'd go back in the community on day 1 again. We do have we do have the ability to not restart the clock, but that's again between that's an individual's decision made between the NGRI committee and the treatment team regarding that individual, that specific individual, and what's going on.
All right, so just moving a little bit more into authorized leave status, that conditional release that we were talking about. Many of you may remember these, but just a little bit of background for those who are newer to the field. An authorized leave status contract is a written agreement between the patient, the committee, and treatment providers. It really details those conditions and supports between community providers and the patient. And really again, in the spirit of the Pellicet lawsuit, efforts are really going to be made to make sure those contracts are very individualized to meet the person's individualized risk factors. Okay, so risk mitigation strategies. I know we use that word a lot, but really, those are really those very individualized strategies designed to reduce the person's risk of harming themselves or others. And we really try to ensure that they're tied to the person's behavioral health needs. So lots of discussions and collaboration hopefully would be occurring while the patient is still in the hospital with the state hospital teams, the community mental health teams, to really identify those risk factors and then figure out what resources are in the community that would be available to help mitigate that risk. And again, just, examples that we're talking about of risk mitigation strategies or things that we would see in ALS contracts would be, it could be court-ordered treatment for someone. It could be the type of placement, specialized programming that might meet their needs, the level of care, how we administer the medication. The use of long-acting injectables is certainly a risk mitigation strategy that's important for many of our consumers who have long-term non-compliance issues, substance use screenings, any of those types of things that is going to help the person in their recovery in the community. And again, that authorized leave status period is really a document that details all the conditions, and it's saying essentially that the NGRI committee is approving approving the release of this person as long as all those conditions and services and placements that are identified in that contract are going to be implemented in the community, are able to be implemented. All of the necessary parties would be signing that. Because again, it's a conditional release. We're saying that they are safe to be released on these conditions with these services. So that's why we're going to have all of that spelled out. And again, they're going to be placed on leave from the hospital. And again, for up to 5 continuous years. One of the nice things that I think that we didn't have before when we used to have contracts that we're going to be doing now is ensuring that addendums are being made for the ALS contract. So as a patient progresses through their treatment and services are reduced or changed or levels of care are reduced as they're progressing and doing well in treatment, we're going to make sure those are all documented and attached to the contract so that there's a real live living document of where this person is at and what they are receiving at this moment in time. And again, just this little illustration here, this is kind of near and dear to my heart. But, you know, I am very passionate about the NGRI population and really about the idea of the fact that NGRI patients are all of our mutual consumers. I mean, we should all be collaborating amongst each other because we all have a shared responsibility in their care, in their treatment. I don't want people to feel like they're on an island alone when they're dealing with them, that we really, by having NGRI committee involvement in kind of all of our efforts here, all 3 of us here, the state hospitals, the committee, and the CMHs, are there to help coordinate, consult, figure out what interventions are best for our patients to help them succeed in the community and for the community to be safe as well. Like this is kind of redundant, but again, that ALS contract really is going to detail all of those conditions and supports and responsibilities and timelines so that hopefully there's less confusion about what should be done for NGRI patients in the community. And all of those expectations. And it's also in there going to really detail the due process that would be afforded to patients if they elect to appeal decisions or if they have to be rehospitalized, you know, how they can go about that process of appealing that hospitalization. Again, similar to those risk mitigation strategies, the contract's going to really detail all of those types of programming, the frequency that we might see of the specific types of interventions that could be helpful to the patient. You know, the frequency of UDS or certain monitoring to help further assist in their stabilization. And similar to as the risk mitigation strategies are, you know, we would anticipate that, you know, the ALS contract, a person's treatment plan, you know, should all correlate, that, you know, those treatments that are being identified in the contract are also likely going to be in their treatment plan. So there's a nice continuity of care and understanding of those things that are necessary for that person. Just some quick examples of what it's going to look like. Again, you know, it might say something like the ACT team will meet with the patient 3 times a week in their home to administer medication and monitor for symptoms. They might be receiving random alcohol and drug screening twice a month to help with stabilization, or that they'll be living in an AFC setting with 24/7 care to kind of help assist with monitoring and their personal care needs. And again, we anticipate and want to see changes throughout a person's journey from when they step foot out of the state hospital setting. Treatment should be dynamic. We would anticipate that maybe when they get out of the hospital setting, when they're probably most at risk, when they're transitioning to a lower level of care, we're going to like kind of bombard with a nice full array of services. And then as they master that and do well, we would then certainly start transitioning them hopefully to lower levels of care under the guidance and recommendations and supervisions of the community mental health team. And at the same time, if there's changes to someone's care where they might need back to a higher level of care, we would certainly kind of see that back and forth as part of their journey. And again, I think all of us are trying to find a nice balance between the patient's autonomy, giving them ensuring their rights and their success and their ability to live in the least restrictive setting that's safe for them, highlighting their protective factors, supporting those risk factors, and really, ensuring community safety needs at the same time. As part of the ALS process, it's going to be detailed in the ALS contract, but it's also part of the state hospital and CMHSP contracts. CMHs have certain responsibilities for our NGRI consumers, and that would be completing those court work in a timely manner, submitting the requests for, trips, moves, discharges, notifying the committee and the state hospital of any of those changes. And then, of course, those progress reports that are sent to us at the 30 or 90-day marks. The committee and the state hospitals, we, continue to, when individuals are going to be placed on leave, we're going to still be coordinating that paperwork with the CMH providers. So our liaisons at Walter Reuther, at Caro, at KPH will be sending reminders when court work is due, when progress reports are due. And we really want all parties, the state hospital, the committee, and the CMH, on all of the correspondence that comes for an NGRI consumer, so that we're all kind of on the same page, understand what's going on, and can, intervene quickly if needed.
So we've talked about our proposed changes, and so when are we going to roll all this out? Well, it's basically already started, some of it at least. In January of 2026, we did, the state hospital policy was posted with the changes that again affects state hospitals, but the NGRI committee as well. In January, there's also been talk between the state hospital and the CMHSP regarding changes to the contract that they share, so that this is all agreed upon and everyone is aware of their responsibilities. In February, Kelli and I and Dr. Moore from the Forensic Center took part in a winter conference training for the CMHs in Kalamazoo. And April of this year, and in fact, in the past week, the state hospital has sent out memos to the judges as well as the prosecutors. And I am told just yesterday, memo went out to the CMHs regarding leadership, regarding the intended changes that are taking place. We have already had our first patient from the CFP that was discharged or released into the community on an ALS contract. So they left on a hospitalization order with an ALS contract into the community, and all went well there. We are planning for CMHSP summer conference attendance. Kelli and I and Jenny from Wayne State Center for Behavioral Health and Justice will be presenting at the summer conference. And we do intend to present at the fall conference as well, to try to continue to put out more information regarding our rollout and how things are going. In September, we are also having another webinar as well to discuss the changes and kind of how things are going.
Dr. Kulp, I was wondering if it would be okay with you if we stopped here and allowed the next 10 minutes or so for questions, and then I can send out the PowerPoint to attendees for the
I
rest
think that would be great. Yes.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. So we have gotten some great questions in the chat here. And the first one I wanted to address and bring up was the first one that was asked is, how are we going to ensure outpatient treatment for NGRI patients if there's no more AOT for NGRI?
Well, again, there will be the ALS contracts, which while people will be on hospitalization orders, they will be in the community and will be just like they were with the AOT orders, will be in the community, living in the community with the same services they had with the AOT orders. So it shouldn't look different kind of in a day-to-day way. The CMHs will still be providing the care as they would have. And again, I think some of us who have been around a while will remember when there were ALS contracts. It's similar. I think it's a better version and more individualized, but I don't think kind of a day-to-day you're going to see much difference whether they're on the AOT contract or on the AOT order versus a hospitalization order, because again, they're on release from the hospital. Kelli, do you want to say anything about that?
I think more in addition to that, I think just, we anticipate again that there's going to be individuals on AOTs, hospital orders. There'll be a variety of orders out there, and the NGRI committee will still be following just as long as somebody is on some type of court order for treatment.
Great. Thank you. So the next question that we had was a question about training for folks in the legal system, kind of addressing how, where pursuing NGRI is appropriate and how we're seeing many low-level misdemeanors where well-meaning defense attorneys are pushing for NGRI, and that client ends up leaving not really understanding what the expectations are of them. And I see a lot of parallels in this conversation to, seeking AOT for certain clients as well. So the question was, is there training in the future or education in the future for folks in the legal system around that, when NGRI is appropriate to pursue?
I think, from that perspective, we've had some folks from the Forensic Center who have spoke to different like prosecutor associations or defense attorney associations regarding kind of that process. It's kind of like the pre-adjudicative process of like when NGRI is appropriate. I know at the Forensic Center, if we receive orders for a criminal responsibility evaluation, which is that evaluation to help assess for a not guilty by reason of insanity plea, if it's a misdemeanor, we typically send a letter back to the court saying we typically don't do these for misdemeanors, but sometimes the court may kind of push or insist, and that's fine. We'll certainly honor that, but we try to kind of even screen them out on our end a little bit for some of those misdemeanors where it's just not really a great option.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I was the one that posted the question, and we have literally had some patients that are like, but if I get NGRI, then I'll never have to talk to you guys again. And we're like, that is not how that works at all.
No.
Thank you. So the next question is, how do you plan to implement the training for judges as often they do not attend if it's not required?
Great question. Well, the first step was getting the memo out, which we didn't even have before. So that's our first step. We are actively reaching out to try to schedule something. We are also utilizing our the state hospital legal, our lawyers to help with that. If any of you are part of the legal community and can help us, that would be great too, or have ideas for us. Yeah, we can only offer the training or the education. I don't know that we can force anyone to listen, but we will continue to try to put it out there to educate, because I know it is, having testified in court, you don't want to come up in court to a judge who didn't know about something, is surprised. or the prosecutors. So we really want to try to get education out there so they are aware of the changes and feel comfortable, at least with knowing what the changes are, and doing our part as much as possible so that we don't leave any of the people testifying out there hanging. And we want the whole process, obviously, everyone to be aware in the whole process so it can run smoothly.
Wonderful. Thank you. So we had another question in the chat stating that everyone on the committee is trained and is specialized forensically trained. So someone was curious about where to get that training, or where does one get that training?
Good question. Well, for the psychiatrists, they have all been through a specialized, after their psychiatry residency, they did a specialized forensic psychiatry fellowship that was an extra year of training. For some of our psychologists are board certified in forensics as well. So the psychology field offers specialized training in that. In addition, everyone here has gone through training through the Forensic Center to become a certified forensic examiner or a consulting forensic examiner. Both are through the state, and there's a kind of prescribed training program for that. So that happens through the Forensic Center for employees of the Forensic Center.
Gotcha. Christina, I'm so sorry I didn't see your hand up. Did you want to, not to backtrack, but did you want to add to the judge question?
Yes, my name is Christina Morgan. I'm the Behavioral Health Administrator for the State Court Administrative Office, and I haven't received a memo. So if I could possibly get a copy of that, I can put my email in the chat, but we would, through our Michigan Judicial Institute, be the ones that will implement training for our judges.
Wonderful. I will definitely make sure that you get that memo.
Wonderful. Great. So let's see here. We've got just a couple minutes left. We can go ahead, and the last question, I just want to say also, we'll make sure to address all of the questions in the chat here. As we end, we'll go ahead and we'll see if Dr. Kulp and Kelli can maybe give like a written answer to some of these questions in the chat here that we can include in the follow-up email. So, and also I know that there was a request in the PowerPoint. I saw a request for feedback and stuff like that. So if you would like, if you have any feedback as well on what was presented here today, go ahead and drop it in the chat, and we will make sure that gets in Dr. Kulp and Kelli's hands and brains. So,
and we would appreciate the feedback because we will incorporate that into future trainings as well. So very much appreciate that.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Kulp. Yes, there does seem to be a more interest in overall trainings in general. So here's your opportunity to plug what you would like to see in those trainings. So we'll end with the last question I see here in the chat, which is, what will the NGRI committee do if the community probate judge dismisses the AOT order, or if there's a clerical error and the application for AOT renewal of the AOT doesn't make the deadline?
Kelli, you want to take that one?
All right, sure. Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes if there's a clerical error or someone misses a deadline where it's, really the intention of the team to maintain a person on some type of court order, the committee would typically advise the team, especially if that's their intention, to refile. Sometimes it does mean like refiling, a new PET and a new cert, to maintain NGRI status and or court order treatment for that person. If a probate court dismisses a hospitalization order or an AOT, because that's their intention, I mean, certainly that's the court's prerogative, and we certainly can't really go against like a judge's opinion. But again, if that happened and then down the road a team saw different changes to the person's presentation that might make that person meet the requirements again for some type of court order treatment, they could certainly refile if needed, just to kind of help mitigate that person's risk. once in a blue moon, if needed, again, because a person is on a hospitalization order, we can sometimes utilize a state hospital treatment team if needed for paperwork. If needed, that would probably be in very rare circumstances. Because again, it still would ultimately usually is up to the community mental health person and their responsibilities to file the appropriate paperwork for the patient. Dr. Kulp?
Yeah, no, I think you said everything. I think the only thing I would just kind of reiterate is, if a judge dismisses the order, then we will not follow them. But as Kelli said, that doesn't mean that if something changes clinically and the team thinks that they would require court order treatment again, by all means, then they would want to file again. And we wouldn't follow them. It wouldn't mean we would come back. The NGRI committee would then start following them again. But it is an important, it's important to know that just because it was dismissed once, things might change clinically, and it might be appropriate to file those orders again, or those pit insert again.
Copy that. So I wanted to ask Dr. Kulp and Kelli, do you have like a hard stop at noon, or is it okay if we go a couple minutes over? There's no wrong answer.
I don't have a hard stop.
I don't either.
Okay, awesome. So we're going to go ahead and take Zach's question. I assume Z Holcomb starts with Zach. So yeah, we'll go ahead and take Zach's question, and then we'll go ahead and close out, and we'll make sure all the questions are addressed in the chat. Thank you, everyone. Go ahead, Zach.
So for people that are NGRI, they get put on a court order. Would the court orders that they're currently on in the future just be invalid, and we'd have to like change what type when we file, or would it just be the same?
Good question.
And that's that RCMH that's been on NGRI for like years, and they're on a court order, and I just want to make sure that we file it correctly, because like they definitely need to be on an order.
Yeah, that's a great question. And, so we, at this point, we understand that there's going to be a lot of different orders out there. And so we, at this point, the NGRI committee is going to follow anyone that's on a court order, whether it's an AOT, a combined, a hospital order. We are moving toward everyone being on hospital orders, but we will continue while that will be our preference in the future, it's going to take a while. We don't expect everyone to, be on a court or a hospital order right away. We're really actually just kind of quickly, the rollout what we're hoping to see will be more starting with the hospitals, the state hospitals, and that we discharge people on court orders. It makes it, and the ALS contracts. Then, as everyone gets educated, gets more comfortable with this, hopefully the NGRI, the patients that are on orders in the community would then, as their orders expire, then you would repetition for, and if they're appropriate, you all think they're appropriate for court order, then you would refile for the hospitalization order, where they would then be considered on leave from the hospital. And again, we're also thinking, there's going to be times it's going to be a little messy where they may get that new court order, but we don't have the ALS contract in place right away. They can still continue on their current risk mitigation strategies. I think the word is going to be flexibility. We're going to be flexible with this. At this point, the bottom line is we want them on a court order, or we won't be able to follow them. And we will continue to do education and follow up and reach out with individual patients as we move forward. And again, start with more of the hospitalized patients and move more towards the community patients as we can. Right. And as the treatment team, you can't do everyone at once. We understand that it's a big load, but yes, we don't expect anyone who needs that court order treatment, needs the NGRI follow-up to fall through the cracks. We definitely don't want that at all.
Right. So they just change what type of order it was. It would just go from like a normal AOT to the other type. To the
hospitalization order. And before anybody in the community goes forward, if they have any questions before we start doing any of this, we don't want teams in the community to go forward not knowing what they're doing and filing these because they feel like they have to. Just continue with what you're doing, and we will continue to give you information on when changes. We would hope that changes would take place, but again, we're going to be flexible. We understand that this is a big change for kind of procedures.
And can I just add one quick thing to that too? I mean, we have like, hundreds of patients in the community who are NGRI. And I think our goal also is when these orders are nearing expiration and as we're starting to transition to hospital orders, we will also likely be reaching out to CMH teams to probably schedule meetings so that we can kind of work to, collaboratively to develop a current ALS contract for the patient that could kind of further assist in your treatment with them. So I guess anticipate that down the road a little bit too, once we get resources and kind of up and running.
Yeah, as Kelli had said, but kind of alluded to before, when the ALS contracts were working well before, especially if someone was hospitalized and going back into the community, we had a lot of more contact with CMHs prior to the patient leaving. It was more collaborative with the patient and the CMH and the hospital team and the NGRI committee. We would like to get back to that. That's one thing that I think we lost with the AOT, more with the AOT orders, is that collaboration between all of us as we set up those risk mitigation strategies, which will now be the ALS contract.
Right. Thank you so much for the question. And I see, I know that I said that would be the last question, but I see that Judge Mack put a really, really good question in the chat. So we're going to address his question and then close out here. Judge Mack asks, is it your intention that initial orders and all subsequent orders will be 1 year hospitalization and ALS?
Well, it would we would still plan for the initial order would be the 60-day, and then then if they need another order would be the 90-day, and then we would go to the year, and then any continuing orders after that would be we would ask for a year.
Great. Well, awesome. Okay, thank you so much. There's still a lot of questions in chat, but like I said, we'll go ahead and make sure we address those in the follow-up email. If you want to be included in the follow-up email, please either drop your email in the chat or follow that link that we had posted earlier in the chat where you can sign up for our newsletter and get information on the AOT Q&A sessions and such. So again, thank you all so much for coming. Thank you so much, Kelli and Dr. Kulp, for taking time out of your days to be here. And yes, this is always a hot topic, well needed to talk about. So thank you so much, and we'll be in touch, everyone. Have a great weekend.